Here's Chapter 4 of HOA Bans My Christmas Lights. Big Mistake. Chapter 4. The Christmas Eve Showdown. As December rolled into its final days, Oakwood Hills transformed in a way no one had expected. What had started as Daniel's single act of defiance had spread like wildfire. Nearly half the homes in the neighborhood now glowed with festive lights. Some were modest, simple strings wrapped around door frames or bushes, but others were bold, with inflatables, colored lights, and cheerful music filling the air. The sterile uniformity that the HOA had worked so hard to maintain was gone. In its place was something alive, joyful, and deeply human. Families walked the sidewalks at night, children carrying cups of hot cocoa as they admired the displays. Cars continued to roll in from outside the neighborhood, and Oakwood Hills became known as the Christmas Street in local media. For the first time in years, residents felt a sense of pride, not in the HOA's strict rules, but in the warmth and individuality of their homes. To almost everyone, it was magical. But to Karen, it was a nightmare. The HOA president had lost control of her community. Violation letters piled up in her office, but fewer and fewer people were paying attention to them. Residents who once cowered at her threats now laughed them off, emboldened by Daniel's stand. The more people decorated, the weaker the HOA looked. And the weaker the HOA looked, the more desperate Karen became. She knew she needed to act before Christmas. If the neighborhood celebrated the holiday in full defiance of the HOA, it would set a precedent she could never undo. She told herself that this wasn't just about Daniel or decorations. It was about protecting the integrity of Oakwood Hills. But deep down, it was about something else: pride. She had spent years building her reputation as the enforcer, the one person who could not be challenged. And now, in front of her entire neighborhood and even the local media, her authority was slipping away. So Karen devised a plan. If Daniel wouldn't comply willingly, she would force him to. She gathered a small group of loyal board members and announced that on Christmas Eve, they would restore order. Their intention was simple: shut down Daniel's lights, physically if necessary, and prove to everyone that the HOA was still in charge. Christmas Eve arrived with crisp air and clear skies. From early evening, families began gathering around Daniel's home. His display had grown into a full production, with towering light trees, glowing reindeer, and synchronized music playing through speakers that carried holiday cheer up and down the street. Children laughed and pointed, couples held hands, and the smell of hot chocolate and cookies drifted from makeshift stands neighbors had set up. It felt less like a single home's decoration and more like a community festival. But lurking beneath the cheer was tension. Word had spread that the HOA was planning something drastic. Daniel had heard whispers from sympathetic neighbors, but he wasn't sure what to expect. Still, he refused to back down. As the sun set and his house lit up in a dazzling display of color and sound, he felt a surge of pride. Whatever came next, he knew he had done something meaningful. The HOA made their move just after nightfall. Karen and 3 board members marched down the street, carrying clipboards and tools. Their faces were grim, their posture stiff, as they pushed through the crowd of onlookers, who quickly realized what was happening. Whispers rippled through the gathering: "They're here to shut it down." Karen wasted no time. She stormed up Daniel's driveway, announcing that his decorations were a clear and present violation of community bylaws. She waved papers in the air, citing safety hazards and traffic issues. But her words were drowned out by the music and laughter around her. Few paid attention, and those who did simply shook their heads in disapproval. Frustrated, Karen took matters into her own hands. She ordered one of her board members to cut the power cord leading to the lights. As the men moved forward, the crowd gasped. Daniel stepped forward too, standing firmly between the board member and the display. His children clung to his wife's side, eyes wide with fear and confusion. For a moment, it seemed like the situation might explode into chaos. But something remarkable happened. The neighbors stepped in. One by one, families moved closer, forming a barrier between the HOA board and Daniel's lights. Parents stood shoulder to shoulder, while children held hands, their faces lit by the glow of the decorations. No one shouted, no one pushed, but the message was clear. The community had chosen a side, and it wasn't the HOA's. Karen's face turned red with rage. She shouted about rules, fines, and legal consequences. But her voice was swallowed by the sound of carols playing from the speakers and the murmur of the supportive crowd. For years, fear had been her weapon, but now it was gone. The residents weren't afraid anymore. They were united. Unable to break through, Karen tried one last desperate tactic. She called the police, demanding they shut down the display. But when the officers arrived, they were met with the sight of dozens of families peacefully gathered, children sipping cocoa, and a house glowing with Christmas cheer. The officers spoke briefly with Daniel, checked the setup, and then turned back to Karen with a shake of their heads. There was no violation, no danger, nothing that warranted action. The crowd erupted in cheers as the officers left, and Daniel's lights continued to shine brighter than ever. Karen, humiliated and defeated, stormed away with her board members, her threats ignored by everyone around her. The power she had wielded for so long was gone, stripped away not by legal technicalities, but by the will of the community she had tried to control. That night, Daniel's home became more than just a Christmas display. It became a symbol of unity, a reminder that rules and authority meant nothing without the support of the people they governed. Families stayed late into the evening, singing carols, sharing food, and celebrating together. What had begun as one man's defiance had turned into the heart of Oakwood Hills. But even as the crowd celebrated, Daniel knew the battle wasn't over. The HOA still had its lawsuit, and Karen's pride would not let her walk away quietly. The lights had survived Christmas Eve, but the war for Oakwood Hills was far from finished. End of Chapter 4. Next chapter will cover the aftermath of Christmas Eve, the lawsuit gaining steam, and how Daniel's fight inspires even greater resistance in the neighborhood. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 5 now?